Howdy, this is Erin Hobson with Red Hook Guitar, and today we're going to learn how to play a chihuahua. I'm just kidding. Today we're going to talk about triads, and I once asked one of my students what she thought a triad was, and she said it was a Chinese gang. I Googled it. I thought that was a pretty funny answer. So I Googled it, and sure enough, the definition of a triad is a Chinese gang. But in music, it is a three-note chord. So if you know anything about the English language, you know that a tricycle is a bicycle with three wheels. You know that a triangle is a shape with three angles. And you know that a triceratops, just kidding. Anyway, we're going to talk about four types of triads today. We're going to talk about major, minor, augmented, and diminished. So we've been learning about our intervals, so those terms by now should sound familiar to you. Major are all your happy chords, right? Minor are your sad chords. Augmented is a little bit dissonant, it's a little bit strange sounding, a little bit dreamy maybe. Diminished also a little bit dissonant, a little bit odd, right? So we're going to talk about these chords and their formulas. So this is where, if you're really good at math, this is where it comes in handy. So each chord has a formula that gives it its unique sound. So I have my trusty little triad summary sheet here. So if we start with major, you see that the formula is 1, 3, 5. So that means your 1 is your root, your 3 is your major third, and your 5 is your fifth. So if we tally together those notes, we start on C, obviously. If we go 2 whole steps to our major third, we get an E. If we go another half step and a whole step, we get our fifth, which is G. And typically when you see that chord written out somewhere, it is just with a plain letter C. So that's your major. So if you want to figure that out on the guitar, here's a C note, right? If I go 2 whole steps, I have my E, that's my major third. If I go another half step and a whole step, I have a G, which is my fifth. So when you play a C chord, just these open campfire chords, the very first ones that you ever learn when you play guitar, you look at the notes here. So you have a C, that's your root. You typically start with your root, unless you're playing an inversion, which we will get to later. So you have C as your root. There's my E, my third. G is my fifth. I have another C on top here and another E on top in an octave. So the only 3 notes that I'm really playing in that chord are C, E, G. Alright, so, and we can talk about these as triads, which are just 3-note chords up and down the neck. So you've heard triads, you've maybe even played triads before if you've played the intro to 8 Days a Week by the Beatles. In that case, I'm just taking a D chord and I'm moving it around the fretboard. If you've played Stairway to Heaven, notice these little 3-note chords. Again, the D shape. This I'm going to show you how it relates to the A shape in the open position. Right? And there's numerous examples. If you've played Crazy Train, right? This is another major shape. Okay, 3-note chord, triads. If you've played Wrong Way by Sublime, right? You've got that D chord and then it moves in to that F shape. So these are triads. These are little 3-note chords. So I'm going to start with C as the major example. So if I just took 3 notes from that C and I played, starting on this C here, I played C, E, and G, right? So I started on the 5th fret, C on the 3rd string, and then E on the 5th fret of the B string, 3rd fret on the bottom, that's my G. So that's a movable shape. If it's C here, then it's C sharp here, it's D here, it's D sharp here, it's E here, it's F. And this shape sort of comes from A major. If I just played the bottom 3 notes of an A chord, right? I have 2, 2, 0, A, C sharp, and E. But when I move that over, I don't have an open string anymore, so I have to put something here on the 1st fret for my 5th. Then it becomes a movable shape. So that's C major. Okay, if I go to another position, I have C, G, and E here, right? That's another way to play C major. So I'm up on the 8th fret root, and then I'm up here in my D shape. So those are all ways to play C major across the neck with triads, 3-note chords. So we're going to get into, later we'll get into how to do these. These are what are called inversions. So if you always start with your root, that's called a root inversion. And I'm going to do a whole lesson on inversions, putting the 3rd in the bass, putting the 5th in the bass, but I don't want to confuse you with all that now. I just want to teach you what a triad is, essentially, and how to formulate one. So that's major, and I'll do another lesson later on figuring out triads all across the fretboard. We're just going to do them on the bottom 3 strings for now, just to keep it short. So after C major, you have minor. So the formula for a minor chord is 1 flat 3 5, which is root minor 3rd 5th. So those notes in C related to C, C, E flat, G, and the way that you'd see a C minor chord, C with a lowercase m. Sometimes people write it C-M-I-N. Sometimes people write it C with a minus sign here. So those are ways that you would see a C minor chord written out. Okay, so here's my major that I played here, which is C, E, G. So all I have to do is I have to flat that 3rd. So right now I'm playing a major 3rd, E. I'm going to bring it down to an E flat. Now it's a minor. So I just changed one note by 1/2 step, and I went from happy to depressing. All right, so there's my root position C minor. I can also play it up here on the 8th fret where I have E flat, G, C. And I can also play it up here where it looks like a D minor shape, okay, where I have G, C, and E flat up here. So those are ways that you can play C minor. If you're playing like a barred C minor, look at the notes you're playing. C, G, C, E flat, G. So really it's just C, E flat, and G in that chord that you're playing, okay? So now we're going to talk about the formula for an augmented chord. So we have, it's closely related to that major chord because you have a root, you have a major 3rd, but you have a sharp 5, an augmented 5, which means you're making that 5 larger by 1 fret. So now you have C, E, and G sharp. So ways that you will see it written out, if you ever see a chord that says C+, you go, what the hell is that? Well, it's a C augmented. Sometimes people write C-A-U-G, short for augmented, or C sharp 5. So those are typical ways that you will see that chord written. It's not a very common chord. So again, I'm going to go back to my C major triad, C, E, G. So I have to sharp the 5 on that one. So now I've got this C augmented chord. So it's a very dissonant, dreamy sounding chord. So now I'm going to go up here. Here's my other place where I was playing C major. So my 5th is here on the 8th fret. I'm going to sharp it to the 9th fret. Now I go up to this shape, which is the D shape, and I sharp my 5, and I have my augmented chord again. So it's not a very common one. You know, it's typically used as a passing tone between the 5th and the 6th. It's got a nice, interesting sound if you want to throw it in there. And then the last one I'm going to show you today is diminished. So the formula for a diminished chord is 1 flat 3 flat 5. So this one's more related to the minor chord. So if you put that together, you have C, E flat, G flat as your notes. And the way that you typically see them written out, C with a little circle, or C-D-I-M, short for diminished, or C minor flat 5, because it is just a minor triad with a flatted 5th. So going back to our minor chord here, right, we have C, E flat, G. So now we're going to take that and flat it. Now you have this dissonant kind of sound, all right? here's another C minor up here on the 8th fret. So I'm going to flat that 5th, then I have that sound, right? Here's another C minor up here. So if I flat the 5th, I have that diminished sound. Okay, so that's just an overview. I'm not going to teach you how to play them all over the neck, but know that you can play them all over the neck. So I'm going to use D as an example here to show you because it's a little bit easier. So I have my D shape, which should be familiar to you, which I'm playing F sharp D A. I have this shape, which is in Crazy Train, D A F sharp. Then I have this shape, 3 notes at a time, D F sharp A. Then I have this shape, A D F sharp. So just playing 3 notes at a time. You have all those options. You can take it into this position where I have this, 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 this. I could take it into this position where I have this, 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 this. And that's playing major shapes all across the fretboard. And then you can do it with your minor, right? D minor, D minor, D minor, D minor. Then you have D minor here. Then you have D minor here. Alright, so I don't expect you to be able to play all of that. You can look up, you can Google triad shapes across the fretboard in major, in minor, in augmented, and diminished if you really want to learn them all across the neck. They're really useful tools, not only just for playing chord melodies or coming up with more interesting chord movement, but also if you outline these, you have arpeggios, which are just broken chords. So if somebody's playing, a D chord and you want to do something melodic rather than just playing your major scale, you can play something a little bit more melodic, So it sounds a little bit more interesting than just playing your major scale. But there's so much to learn, as I always say, and this is just a basic overview. So I'll put in the description the formulas. Really, it's just about memorizing the formulas, major, minor, augmented, diminished, and understanding how they work and how they sound. So like I said, each one has a different sound, as you know. And if you want to Google how to play them across the fretboard, then go ahead and do that. I may do a lesson later on application and, learning what I just showed you, because I know I went through it pretty quickly. But it's really just a demonstration. Again, this is just a piece of a larger puzzle that I'm just trying to go in order so you understand everything methodically. Anyway, so until next time, see you later.